Okay, today I'm reassembling this 2008 Audi with a 2-liter turbo. I installed the oil or the balancer shaft module. As we can see here, balancer shaft module is installed. It's torqued and everything. And you got to make sure there's a little notch usually on the oil balancer shaft drive here. I put some yellow paint, but it has to align with a hole on the top. So that's all installed. That's all torqued. We will be installing a man filter. This car had a Fram made in China filter, so I would be very surprised that the filter had an effect on it, but I mean, it's worth a try. And I replaced, because I checked 2 connecting rod bearings, so I replaced the bolts. So there's 2 bolts per connecting rod. They're stretch bolts, so it's very recommended to replace them. So I replaced 4 of them, 4 bolts for 2 connecting rod bearings. So what I did in order to remove the oil pan, you loosen the aluminum bracket that holds the back end of the transmission, and then the subframe is pulled under that bracket. And as you can see, I have some tie downs that pulls the subframe backwards. So it gives me room here to install these two nuts. They're actually bolts that goes on the rear main seal, and they're not very easy. I put some yellow paint here because there's only one spot where maybe it gives you a little bit more room to get an extension in there, but it's probably one of the most difficult one. The Golf and Jettas, usually they're quite easy to install these 2 bolts on the back. But anyway, so I'll be putting the oil pan back on and restarting it. I have the oil pressure gauge installed. Oil pressure gauge is right on top there. It's screwed on that flange. But to me, I think that if there is still a low oil pressure issue, I think this plastic flange where the oil filter goes, as you can see, I can see at least 2 springs. There's 2 springs, one on the left, one on the right, and something in the middle. I'm not sure what it is, but I've been told that that could be why the engine has a low oil pressure, because there was nothing worn out. So I'm going to put it back together, and I checked the balancer shaft. Then again, like I said, these shafts were very tight. Okay, so no wear, because I've replaced 2 of them earlier, one on the A4, one on the GTI. So anyway, we'll be putting it back together and see if we still have a low oil pressure. Okay, so I have the oil pan reinstalled. So I had the oil pan reinstalled. I have put the oil in it with the oil filter. The oil filter that I put on there is a MAN filter, which is made in Germany. And these filter, it says here, moment. Anyway, this is the part number, HU719/6X. And it's a German company. It says made in Germany, and that's the brand that usually Volkswagen has. It doesn't have that logo on it, but that's where it's made. All right, so I put the oil in it. I just put just regular 1540 temporarily. That's what I put on there for now, because we might have to remove the head for the Misfire that it has because of the low compression. So we have the front end is off right now, as you notice, and I have the condenser with a bungee cord, and so we're gonna start it up. We already did start it up, and looks like we have good oil pressure. I don't know for how long, but so right now it's at 0. The engine is not running, so start it up. See the oil pressure? Well, right now it's stalled. But as soon as we start it, you can see the oil pressure goes up. right now it's at I guess 70 pounds of pressure. Fais-le voir plus, virer un petit peu plus. See, that's the maximum it will go, like 75 pounds when it's cold. So I guess the valve works okay. So before, just idle it. See, right now it's at idle. At idle before, we had below 25 pounds, like maybe 10 pounds at most. And if we look at the instrument cluster right now, obviously we have low coolant because there's no rad, but you can see the check engine is flashing. And see, the check engine is flashing, and so it has misfires. I haven't put the scan tool on it right now, but you can see that the engine is not running smooth, and it's not a coil issue. But what I'm gonna do is I'm probably gonna do another compression test just to confirm that it really has a low compression on certain cylinders. So we're gonna get a little bit of heat in the engine, and we'll see what the result of the compression tests. Okay, just as a comparison, this is the filter that was on that car. This was a Fram, which is CH9911, says made in China, and this filter had less than maybe 100 kilometers on it, okay, like 60 miles. Okay, you can see that the filter is shrunk a little bit, but it's, you know, it's a brand new filter. I was not the one who installed this filter. I usually don't use these filters, but anyway, just compared, we have a 2012 Jetta TDI over there. We're doing an oil change. This car had like 18 or 19,000 kilometers on it. This is a man filter, okay, but you can tell on the top, but this is a man filter. It's a good grade filter, and even though with that it has maybe a year old oil change, and you can see the filter is quite collapsed compared to this one, and this car came in with no problem, so we're just changing the oil. This one here is perfect. So right now we have a good oil pressure on that car, so I don't know if this filter was limiting the flow that much, but or because I removed the pump and I played with the pressure valve and whatnot. So I don't know what to say about it, but anyway, it seems now the oil pressure seems to be okay. Okay, right now I have the car running. You can see that it's misfiring quite a bit on cylinder number 2. Number 1 had 2 misfires, but it's mainly number 2. So anyway, I'm probably gonna do a compression test to see if what's going on, why is it misfiring that much, and also probably I'm gonna I guess transfer the coil 2 and number 4 and see if it, you know, maybe it's a coil or something, but I know that the compression was kind of odd. So anyway, we're gonna have a look at it and see what's going on. Cylinder number 2 has quite a bit of miss. Alright, so what I'm doing on this Audi A4, I'm doing a compression test because on the scan tool it was misfiring quite a bit on number 2. On the other ones it didn't seem to misfire, but on and this was in the garage, not like starting at -10 or something. So so this is the like room temperature. So right now the engine is warm. It's not hot, completely hot, because I didn't want to run it very long because there's no cooling system right now, but I just want to get a little bit of heat in the cylinders and the head and everything. So what I have here, I have done a compression test. See, I have written the number 1 cylinder is 90 pounds, the second cylinder is 40 pounds, number 3 170 pounds, and number 4 is 177 psi. So as what the scan tool told me, it was misfiring on number 2, so it makes sense. The number 2 is very low compression, but the number 1 is not perfect either. So the number 1, number 2, there seems to be an issue, and also when I put the compression gauge on number 1, I can hear that the air is kind of escaping, I guess, on the valve, or I don't know. I don't think it, maybe escaping between the cylinders, like where the head gasket is, but I don't think it. I think it's more like a valve issue. So I'm gonna redo the compression test on number 2. So this is number 2. Number 1 is there. 2, 3, 4. So, and also I found the connector for bypassing the starter on like a 2008 A4. This is a manual transmission, so the automatic, I don't know if it has that connector at that particular location, but this one, it has a connector right behind, almost behind the cylinder head. So it was just loose there, so it connects to this one. This is the chassis connector. This one goes up to the starter. Okay, so what I did, I used a jumper. Okay, so I jumped it up to the battery. So right now I have a long jumper, so I'm touching the battery here. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be touching the battery, and the starter is going to crank. Also, what I did, I removed the crankcase ventilation hose, so just to help the air get into the intake manifold, so I get a good compression. And also I removed the intake manifold temperature sensor. So I did that also because I wanted the air to go in, because this is a you know, electronic throttle body, so I don't want to push on it and, you know, just remove that hose. So what I'm doing is just the air is coming from these two holes, so there's enough air to compress. So I'm gonna try to touch the, I guess I'm gonna have to put the camera here, I guess. I'm gonna put the camera here. Okay, I'm gonna need an assistant, so, okay. Come and touch the positive here with the, when I'm gonna say touch, and then I'm gonna put some pressure on the compression gauge and touch it, and then we'll see. So it doesn't go very high, okay? So we'll test with the same gauge in a different cylinder. So I'm gonna test number 4, which is easy to do, okay? So this one has good compression, okay? So it even passed 175 this time around. So in a way, the compression is very good, especially on the 2 and the 3 and 4. But the number 1 is not perfect. The number 2 here is there's something wrong with it. I think it's valve related. So anyway, we'll see. At least now we have a good oil pressure, so that's a good sign. So anyway, so we'll have other updates. Okay, so I reinstalled the spark plug after the compression test. You can see that the engine is shaking, and the oil pressure is a little bit less than 75 pounds. So it has really good oil pressure now, so that's good. So, so right now it's not running perfect because the intercooler piping are not installed or nothing like that. But at least we have a good oil pressure, so that's interesting. So next step, I guess, is probably going to be to fix the compression issue. It's probably to remove the cylinder head and inspect the valves. I assume that there is some valve bent, some intake and some exhaust. And also, while the cylinder head is removed, we're going to make sure that the cam lobe for the fuel pump, high pressure fuel pump, make sure that camshaft is in good shape while we had the head removed. And other than that, that seems to be running fine. So I don't know if it was just because I took the pump off and I removed a valve, maybe it was sticking, or I did not see anything defective in the oil pump module, but I put everything back together like it was. And the only other thing, I put a different type of oil, a little bit thicker, but it's not the oil that it should have. This is a 1540, it's just a regular type of oil. It's not going to be left in there, but if we remove the head, I'm going to reassemble the head with that old oil, run it, just flush it, and then put 5W40 synthetic oil. Right now it's not synthetic right now, just wanted to try. So, and I have a brand new MAN oil filter. So I don't know, maybe it's the filter. So this is I guess one first thing to go and check. I know the owner told me that the oil filter was brand new. So when I removed it, it looked okay. But sometimes looks can be deceiving, I guess. Okay, so everything is installed. Not everything, obviously, but anyway, everything that has to do with the subframe, and so everything is installed back. So the oil pan is installed. I don't see any leak. Everything is okay. I don't know if you've noticed, but when you put the oil pan, it's very important to not put too much sealant on the oil pan. As you can see, there's only this amount that you know, was spewed out. So you don't need very big amounts, because the problem is some people put a lot of silicone or sealant on the oil pan, and it ends up into the oil pickup for the oil pan, the oil pump, and then this is where you get oil pressure issue. So the subframe is all bolted, torqued back on. It went really good. The last car that I did, this hose here for the air conditioning, the black one, goes to the compressor. I had removed the compressor and dropped the compressor, but this time around I was able to fit the oil pan back on without removing. Obviously, I removed this little plastic bracket, and I pried on the hose a little bit in order to get the oil pan back on. So everything is torqued, everything is, you know, into position. So right now the oil pressure is good. Now the next step is to fix the cylinder head to see what's going on. I would assume it's probably some bent valve. So you can see there's no leaks. So I ran the engine a little bit there, not too much because there's no cooling system, but everything seems to be okay. And I guess on these models it works very good. If you want to remove the oil pan, you really have to unbolt the subframe completely and unbolt this aluminum brace, and then you lower the subframe, but you pull it downwards so this piece here is dropped and it goes below this bracket. And then what I use some ratchet tie downs, and I tied it to this aluminum bracket, and I pulled the subframe towards the back. So the subframe was like maybe this position here, because when everything is installed, as you notice, the bolts here, they're not easy to remove, and the one for the two one where the rear main seal, there's one here and one there. I mean, you can't put a tool there. It's almost, you know, you can't do it. So in other words, you have to drop the subframe. It's not like a Golf or a Jetta. So so that's what's gonna be. So next update, I guess, will be, we might have to remove the cylinder head and see what's going on out there.